The Pacers get back on track with a beautiful team performance. Everybody contributes in a dominant win over the San Antonio Spurs. Lots to break down on how the Pacers got back on track, who stepped up, how it happened, and what is sustainable from this big time Pacers win. Lots to get to today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers as always. My name's Tony East. I cover the Pacers for Forbes and the West Side Community News, and today, finally, we get to talk about a win, and we get to talk about a basketball game in which the Pacers were not within 5 points in the last 5 minutes. I think it was the first time all season, and it was the first time all season that they won the third quarter. November, it's a new month for the Pacers. Forget about that old team that was playing close games and struggling mightily coming out of the half every time. This is a new Pacers. Maybe not. It's just one game, but it was easily the best Pacers performance of the season. They absolutely dominated the San Antonio Spurs, start to finish, really. I mean, the Spurs were ahead once in the middle of the first quarter, and that was it. The Pacers got up to a double-digit lead in the first quarter and very scarcely looked back. The closest they got was 6 early in the second. The Pacers were up over 20 at halftime, never looked back. I mean, it was just an absolute drubbing of the Spurs. And you can say the Spurs aren't that great. I understand. They're 2-4. They also just beat the Bucks on Saturday in Milwaukee by 9, right? They're not a pushover team. They did just beat the champs, and Giannis was excellent in that game with 28 and 13. This Spurs team is kind of good, and the Pacers just absolutely stomped them on their home court. So first of all, big response by the Pacers. Like I get that they're 1-6 and they've had their backs against the wall after losing all these close games that can be very frustrating to good teams. They knew they needed to. This is the worst. Despite what I just said about the Spurs, this is the worst team they've played this season. They needed to come out and just stomp them and show that, like Sabonis said last week, they can come out for a game prepared, ready to give effort the whole time, execute the game plan, and just stomp an inferior team. And they did that. And I think that's kind of a good mental boost for a team that's 1-6. I mean, any win is when you're 1-6, but really the way they did it, they didn't have to struggle with an inferior team. They didn't have to get some 50-50 balls. They can just execute what they wanted to do and be better than the other team. I think that is a big time win for this Pacers team to get. 2-6 sounds bad. They've played 8 games in 13 days against a bunch of good teams. That we'll see what they can do going forward. But it was just good to see them come out and absolutely smack this Spurs team. And it was really led by, I can't really pick one player to say it was led by, but it was led by the starting five's dominance together, I would say, for a majority of this game. They started the same group they did with LeVert back on Saturday. So McConnell, LeVert, Sabonis, Turner, and Duarte. All 5 of those guys were fantastic in this game. All of their plus minuses were at least plus 10 or more, right? So when they were all sharing the floor, the Pacers were humming. McConnell was 5 for 7. He had 10 points and 10 assists. Huge game for him. And 0 turnovers. It was the most TJ McConnell-esque game that we've seen all season compared to last season, right? Chris Duarte, 6 for 11, 18 points. Excellent game from him if he shoots over 50%. Myles Turner, excellent first quarter. Got the Pacers off on the right foot. 3 blocks, 8 rebounds, 19 points. He shot 70%. Sabonis was 11 for 15, 24, 13, and 6. He was the best Pacer in this one. Absolutely dominant. And LeVert even struggled shooting the ball from inside the arc. 3 for 12 on 2-pointers, but 3 for 7 from deep. 7 assists, right? 7 assists he can create for other guys. 16 points. So that's a starting point for how the Pacers were able to dominate this game. LeVert played in all 4 quarters. Not very much in the fourth. They didn't need him to in this game, but we talked about this yesterday. Derek and I from my Pacers blog did, if you want to go back and listen to it. Something the Pacers have not had in the absence of their 3 best creators in the starting 5 of Brogdon, LeVert, and Warren is someone who can make a play that helps get other guys good shots, right? McConnell can or has variation of they can score and pass, right? McConnell can set up other guys And Jeremy Lamb can score for himself, although he did not play. He was injured in this game. But they don't have anyone who can do both, and that really bends the defense and puts pressure on them. LeVert can do both. So he played in the first half against Toronto. Pacers were ahead at halftime in that game, right? It's clear what his impact was. This game, he plays all 4 quarters. The Pacers dominate. They have that threat of a guy who can get in the lane and score himself or dish to a teammate. So LeVert only plays 23 minutes and 37 seconds in this game. Pacers outscored the Spurs by 16 points. And that's less than half the game. They outscored them by 16 points. So even though he didn't shoot that well, it's just even just one of those 3 guys is so important to the Pacers. And it really shows. Like, I get that they're 1-6 and they haven't played that well. It really shows how much health has hurt them early in the season, when just having one of those guys back makes them an infinitesimally more competent and more capable team, able to do whatever they want to break down the defense. And LeVert has been excellent at doing that to start the season. 7 assists for him was huge. And then the other guy who got in the mix with that starting 5 quite often and had an excellent game, Justin Holiday, a guy that Derek and I talked about yesterday as, him and McConnell. They had not been up to the expectation that they have, probably for themselves, but really that the team has set for them as solid vets. Justin Holiday was shooting under 30% from 3 going into this game. That is no longer the case. He went 5 for 7 from deep, 6 for 8 from the field, and 4 assists from him even too. He had some nice playmaking moments with Myles Turner in the first half. So he had 17 points. They dominated his minutes as well. So those 6 guys were really the core of the Pacers rotation that just, when they were in the game, great things were happening. And it turns out, when the guys who are stepping in for injured players also play well, it helps your team really succeed and do well. So credit to the Pacers offensively is all I've really talked about, even for those guys all stepping up and filling their role the way that we've seen them do in the past and playing it within Carlisle's system. I think we saw a lot of both the stuff that makes McConnell good and the stuff that makes what Carlisle wants to do good, really all meshing in this game. Defensively too. First of all, Myles Turner was fantastic defensively in this game. We've known that for forever, but the Spurs shot 50% from 3, so the perimeter defense continues to not be awesome for the Pacers, but their inside the arc shooting was not necessarily so awesome. Myles Turner was deterring shots at the rim like crazy. Lonnie Walker 4 for 11, Keldon Johnson 4 for 11, Derek White 4 for 10, right? All those guys drove, and then they were shut down by Myles Turner at the basket, so he did a good job defending those guys. Pacers forced 16 turnovers, only allowed 8 offensive rebounds in this game. So they did a lot of good stuff in the minute, in like the possession game, where they've been struggling as well. They've been a bad turnover team this season. The Pacers had only, air quotes, that's not that good, but that's pretty good, only 14 in this one. So just a lot of good steps forward for this Pacers team on both ends. Stifled the second unit for the Spurs as well. So really all-around performance that this team needed. 6 guys in double figures. Everyone who played scored. They played everybody. They were up so much that at the end we saw Dwayne Washington play for 3.5 minutes. O'Shea didn't play for much of the first half. He got in at the end. Goga was playing. I guess Goga did not score. But everybody else who played scored, and Dwayne Washington, his first 5 points in the NBA. And he even played in the rotation for like an important defensive possession in the first half and contributed. Like, Keelan Martin debuted this season. We'll talk about him. I guess that's part of this. Keelan Martin even played and provided them some good offensive minutes. Brad Wanamaker had his best offensive game of the season. Just everybody showed what their role on this team is supposed to be and what they can do when they do it correctly. So in the absence of Brogdon and Lamb and TJ Warren still, this team actually looked very capable and showed that when they're meshing and when they're executing the game plan that they have prepared, they can do pretty well. So they have a rest day. We'll see if they can do it again against the Knicks on Wednesday. But finally, an encouraging performance from a Pacers team desperate for a confidence booster and to show their fans that they're not as bad as their record suggests. So great job by this team to just kick the Spurs' teeth in and get them out of here, especially after they were riding high after their big win on Saturday in Milwaukee. So I have a lot of notes from this game. I want to go over what they mean in this game, what they could mean going forward, and then we'll talk about stuff that I would like to see sustain that maybe is not in my notes, but is still big for this team to potentially try to take away from this game. But first, I got to talk to you guys about the good people over at PrizePicks, because PrizePicks has the best NBA DFS prop games on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown. All of the users that deposit and use the promo code that I'm about to say When you sign up, you'll receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That promo code is NBA. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. PrizePicks allows mixed sport entries. They have an award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, and they have safe and quick withdrawals. Go check them out. Don't hesitate. PrizePicks.com. Use that promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. A lot of good notes from this game when you win by so much as the Pacers did, despite their awful last 3 minutes where the Spurs made it not a 20-point game anymore. There's so many positives, and it's going to seem too rosy for a 2-6 team, but for a team desperate for positives and stuff to take away, I have a few. I took quite a few notes in this game. Some of this stuff is just different stuff than we've seen in other games, and some of it is stuff that's brand new for various reasons. First of all, Myles was awesome in the first quarter of this game. Myles Turner had 12 points in the first quarter alone. That's right about his season average. He finished with 19. He was really assertive, and especially so when he was with the second unit, and he was able to get some more touches both in transition because they were getting a lot of stops as a benefit of his defense, and just in the half court, he was running like I said earlier, he was running pick and rolls and pick and pops with Justin Holiday as the ball handler, which was kind of new and interesting. I don't think that will be something they go to often, but in this matchup, it made sense, and Turner really took advantage with some nice drives. He had some nice and ones, hit a jumper too in that quarter. He looked fantastic offensively. Like I mentioned in the first segment, his defense was a big driver for a lot of the stuff this team was able to do. 2 steals as well. I know there's a popular term in NBA draft Twitter, people who really scout players. They combine blocks and steals, and they call it stocks. And, if a good stocks player tends to be good NBA players. 5 stocks for Turner in this game. So his early dominance really put a stamp on this game that the Pacers were able to ride through and carry that momentum to victory. But a lot of it was with that second unit, and that is important to me and noteworthy to me, and why I typed it in my phone, because those were the minutes where he was really special last year, when he was really carrying that second unit, and they had McDermott and McConnell as a part of that unit last year at times. Doug McDermott did not play for the Spurs, by the way. He has an injury. So to see him do it with Justin Holiday and Brad Wanamaker instead of the guys he usually does it with is encouraging, as something that could be built off of. I'll talk about that in the next segment, but that was noteworthy. Something that we haven't really seen from Turner. We've seen him have a huge game like he did against Washington, but to really put his stamp on that second unit was good for him. Caris LeVert was more dynamic early on in this game, and I kind of mean that in the way I mentioned in the first segment with the assists, where he had 15 points, I believe, on Saturday against the Raptors, and this time he had 16, but the passing was much more obvious in this game, where he actually pulled up from 3 a few times as well, but his game just looked more varied. Like he added in a little bit, but not that he couldn't do it on Saturday, but just, he was limited in minutes. He was just easing into a new team. This time he was getting in a little deeper and some shot fakes and some new pull-ups, and 7 assists is a little different. He just looked more dynamic in a way that makes things harder for the defense. They have to read what he's doing. They have to take an extra second to figure out who he's trying to get the ball to or if he's trying to score. So it was good to see him be a little bit more dynamic. Lazy note here, but still important for this team. I mentioned this in the first segment, but Justin Holiday made shots, and I don't think he's going to fall off a cliff. His skill set is very something that can age with his game. But for a guy who is shooting 29.8% from deep heading into this game and was 14 for 47 from deep, going 5 for 7, now puts him at 19 for 62 on the season. That puts him at 31%. So he jumped his 3-point percentage by basically 2% by having an excellent game. And I didn't even do that math correctly. He has 19 over 52, not 62. He's actually shooting 36.5% from deep. Now he jumped his 3-point percentage by 7% in one game. That's just some law of averages stuff going on, and shows you the dangers of small sample size of panicking when the Pacers have only played 7 games. But it's really nice to see him make some shots, and you can tell he's getting healthier. We talked about that on yesterday's show, that health was certainly a factor in his slow start. But he was just missing a lot of open looks, and in this game, he was making them in the ways that he has made them for the Pacers before, coming around screens from a big or spotting up in the corner, whatever. It was good to see them go down. Brad Wanamaker, still rough-ish rotation minutes at times, but finally had a game where it made sense to play him. Like, he could stay in the game and was good. He was 2 for 4. He hit his only 3, 4 assists, 3 rebounds. So he actually contributed to winning basketball in this game. So after yesterday, where we were like, why is he even playing? Even just play a two guy over him. He actually showed NBA quality backup point guarding in this game, but I don't actually think it was because he was point guarding that much. Ironically, his three was a catch and shoot three. And with Justin Holiday, again, a strange addition to the team this game was his playmaking, but Justin Holiday handling it a little more, allowed Wanamaker to be off the ball more often, and he played with McConnell, like I've mentioned before. Duarte was kind of de facto point guarding with Wanamaker for a little bit. Even Caris LeVert was for a few possessions, allowed him to play off ball more, and he was way better there. He didn't have those crazy throw-in passes that he turned over every so often in previous games. He didn't get swarmed on traps where he gets overwhelmed in those situations. So he can still give McConnell some rest in that combo guard role where he just de facto dribbles it up the court, gives it to someone else to set up the play. He relocates to a shooter spot on the court and can be effective in those ways. Like I said with Derek yesterday, but I'll mention again today, he's better as an off-ball guard, I think. He can be your point guard, but I think he's a combo guard, and we saw that. That's a better role for him offensively. His height kind of limits defensively that he has to guard a point guard. So it's still tougher to play him with McConnell because of that. You're getting into some defensive challenges. You can still get away with him and McConnell for a few minutes, but we saw in this game how to use Brad Wanamaker in a way that still lets him, be helpful when Brogdon is out and soak up point guard minutes. That's a big reason why they added him in the first place, but not be hurting your offense and not able to organize the team and get stuff going. Keelan Martin, he's the new thing that I wanted to talk about in this game. He had missed the first 7 games with a hamstring strain. He told us the day before the season started that he would not be playing for 1 to 2 weeks with a hamstring strain. It's been about 11 days since then, 12 days since then. So a little under 2 weeks, he was able to return for his season debut in this game. Good to see that he was able to play. And luckily for him, who hadn't played all season and needed some reps in games, Jeremy Lamb was hurt and did not play. So there was a little bit of backup wing time. They didn't need to really play him. They went with him with O'Shea in this weird spot in the rotation all of a sudden where he's not playing again. I don't get how Carlisle chooses forwards at this time. I should have asked about that after the game. I apologize for not having that information here, but Keelan was their 9th guy in this game after Torrey Craig. He played 13 minutes and 15 seconds. He's still a depth guy. If Lamb was back or Brogdon was back or Warren was back, if they had any of those guys, he would not be playing. But he was actually pretty good. He hit 2 threes, he literally scored an and one on his first possession of the entire season. 3 assists. This Pacers team was just diming up everybody. 37 total assists in this game. And he hit 2 threes, and his defense was fine. Only 1 turnover, no fouls. So he contributed, which was good to see from him. His plus minus is fluky because he was in that group that closed the game, and they gave up. They were all -8 in like 3.5 minutes, and that hurt. So Wanamaker, Keelan, Goga, Dwayne Washington, and O'Shea closed the game, and the Spurs cut up by 8, and that kind of ruined Wanamaker's plus minus and Keelan Martin's and stuff. But Martin gave them good minutes. It was good to see him out there. And they kind of needed it. They needed a wing who could soak up minutes and not kill them. And it's kind of like Lamb, where if his offense gets to the point where he's shooting 75% and hitting 2 threes, like that makes up for any defensive lowness he can have. So good stuff from him. Good stuff from a lot of those guys that I mentioned in this segment that I thought were noteworthy, right? They got aggressive Myles early in this game. That kind of set the tone. They got a dynamic LeVert that helped them be a little more varied on offense. And then they got Wanamaker to help lead their second unit. Justin Holiday was hitting his shots. All of a sudden, both units are looking very cohesive. So what of that stuff can go forward? And there were some Carlisle comments I want to talk about and some stuff from the second half. Still a lot from this game that the Pacers will hope they can pull from this Spurs game into future games to help them not lose 4 games in a row again. So let's talk about that. But first, let's talk about the good folks over at Shopify, because Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed from down the street to around the globe. They power over 1.7 million businesses from first sale to full scale, reaching customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integration apps, including Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big businesses. Upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online, in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify. It's the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. And in case you didn't know, they let you start, grow, and manage a business very easily. The subscription-based software allows anyone to set up an online store and sell their product. Shopify store owners can also sell in physical locations using their point of sale system and accompanying hardware. So go to shopify.com/lockedonnba, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/lockedonnba right now. Shopify.com/lockedonnba. We're also talking about BetOnline.ag. They are back and better than ever. They have a new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the basketball and football action this season. Head to their new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code that we've got for you, Locked On, to receive your 50% welcome bonus. They've got basketball, football, baseball, postseason, NHL, boxing, UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. Bet Online, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. Bet Online, where the game starts. Some second half notes, some Carlisle notes, and some stuff the Pacers will hope to take away from a big win. Their first big win of the season, their first game where it wasn't close and heart pounding down the stretch, where they just cruised. They won the third quarter. For the first time all season, not a third quarter. They outscored the Spurs in the third quarter. November, again, is a new month. Forget about that October, those crappy third quarters and those close games. This is a new Pacers era, baby. I'm just kidding. It just was good to see them come out of the half and look like the team they were in the first half that was dominating. If they had that performance in any of the Washington, Charlotte, Milwaukee, first Raptors game, they win at all of those games if they have this third quarter that they had today in those instances. So certainly a point of frustration for fans and members of the team, honestly, but it was good to see that. Hopefully they can continue to come out with that emphasis and they didn't settle. Like that's what's been pretty well documented from people who cover the team and have kind of been watching the film back, is that they tend to settle for more jumpers and stay behind the 3-point line, more perimeter oriented in those third quarters. This time they were still getting in to the paint and swinging it around. Again, 37 assists. And that leads to a guy. And one thing I want to talk about is something I took away from this game that can go forward. This was the best EJ McConnell game of the season. And like we talked about Justin Holiday's struggles yesterday, a lot of it's just making and missing threes, and his looks are good. They'll go in. McConnell, it's different. It's not just luck of the timing or a small sample. The way he was playing early in the season was a little different than last year and a little less optimal. Whereas now we've seen a little tweak in his usage. He's driving more to the paint. And I talked about a little bit of his improved play on yesterday's show, but today it was even better than that. He right away in the game was getting to that, right block fadeaway shot he's so good at. In the lane fadeaway, he had one of each. He was getting really in deep with the defense to set up his teammates. Again, he had 10 assists himself. That's a season high for him. That was the closest to the really good McConnell we've seen all season. The guy that is clear, if he plays like this, he's clearly worth the deal he signed this summer. So hopefully that Carlisle has figured that out to an extent of like, oh, okay, this is what I can count on this guy for every game. If I just say, go, get in the paint, make it happen. They have that emphasis on paint touches. Carlisle touched on that after the game. He's touched on that after every game, but I kind of asked about it this time. Like, was that more of an emphasis this game? He's like, yeah, that's an emphasis for us every game. So that's a big thing. Keelan Martin and Justin Holiday both had big second halves on both ends. Just getting good wing play is helpful for this team with TJ Warren out. Again, like I said, with Holiday, a lot of it's just missing shots, but if they can get better wing play from their bench guys or with Lamb out, just in general, guys who are playing the 2 and 3, that's big for a team that, has, even with the injuries, some decent guards who can give them enough. And now that LeVert's back, a good guard and great bigs, getting good wing play is very important. So if those two guys can continue to contribute when they're in the rotation for Justin, that's shooting and being this creator, for Keelan that's playing decent defense and hitting a shot or two, that's huge. They get better wing play, they'll be a better team. The other big player in this game that these are the performances we've been dying to see from him, Domantas Sabonis, 4 shots last week on Wednesday, right? That was the talk of that game. How did the Raptors limit this guy so much? Huge game today, right? 24 points is his third highest of the season behind the first 2 games of the season. 13 rebounds for him is his third highest of the season, behind the Toronto game this weekend and the first game of the season. 6 assists for him is tied for his second highest this season, right? So he put his stamp on the game in the way that he does when he's really dominating. And it didn't feel like they were really forcing it to him or anything. It was just very natural. They figured out a good way for him to be involved, and LeVert's inclusion really helped there. Here's a stat. With both LeVert and Sabonis in the game at the same time in this game, plus 14 in a very small number of minutes. LeVert played 23-37, and not all of them were with Sabonis. So that it's less time than that. They were plus 14. So those minutes were excellent. Those two worked very well in tandem. And Sabonis really put his stamp on this game, especially in the second half, in a way that you hope is replicatable. And he can be the all-star level force that can drive this team to not have another 4-game losing streak and to recover from a 1-6 start. Stuff from after the game I want to talk about. Carlisle was psyched about two stats. One, 37 assists. I brought that up last segment. And, you're a coach, you love that. But in the way that the Pacers have been playing and the way that Carlisle has them playing, where the ball skips around a lot and guys are kind of spread out trying to read and figure out what's going on and then react and run the right thing or run the right action to create a shot for someone else when the ball's whizzing around perfectly and guys are in sync. That's huge for the way they're going to play. That's kind of true of every team, right? For a team that is implementing a new coach's system, that's especially huge. 37 assists, big time from the Pacers to see their offense that way. And 14 turnovers, something Carlisle noted after the game has been a struggle for this team. That is certainly correct. They are 28th in the league, averaging 17.3 per game going into this game. That's obviously concerning. Turnovers are bad. In fact, they're probably the worst thing a team can do. They had 22 in their only win of the season against the Heat, but several games with 15 against Toronto in their loss over the weekend, 18 against the Nets, 22 in that Heat game. Their only two low turnover games before this were their two highest scoring games when they were over 110 against Charlotte and Washington early in the season. Lo and behold, they get down to 14. They score in the 130s again. So that's something else they need to take forward. Continue to focus on not turning it over. They've been killer for this team, and they kind of snowball. This team gets a turnover or two. They feel like they need to force it, break the funk, and end up turning it over more. So, again, another good focus on the little things that can get them not killed in the turnover game, in the transition game. And their transition defense has struggled a bit this year too, and those things work in tandem. But it was good to see them lower the turnovers a little bit. And then Carlisle after the game, obviously. I talked about Caris a lot, but even the coach is saying it, right? He said Caris adds an awful lot for us, right? And we know that, but it was good to hear Carlisle talk about the value that having that dynamic creator can bring to his team. He even cited, as everybody knows, that he can really score and create for others and how important that is for this team. Caris playing and being healthy until Brogdon gets back, which could be soon. He was questionable for this game. That's certainly a good designation if you want to see him play soon. Hamstring injuries, again, can be funky. I don't know if he'll play Wednesday or not, but if he's able to come back soon and we can see 4 starters for the Pacers at the same time, that sounds crazy, but that would be awesome because LeVert is giving the Pacers what Carlisle wants. He's giving them the skills that they've been lacking in terms of good playmaking and low turnovers. He's just been a very good player. So good to hear Carlisle shout him out and stuff like that. That is everything I have in my notepad on my phone from this game. So just a dominant win from the Pacers. I mean, they really needed to come out and just kick someone's butt, both for their mental morale and to just show themselves that they can do it. If they focus on the things that they are being told to work on, and if they play the way that they are being designed to play, things can go well, and they can look like a very good team. They got the Knicks on Wednesday, who are much better than the Spurs, and they got a Knicks team who's going to be mad that they just blew a big lead on Monday to the Raptors, who just beat the Pacers twice. So that'll be a tough one, a much tougher one than the Spurs. But if they play like this, I think the Pacers can win. We'll see. We'll talk more about that game tomorrow. Speaking of this show, Adam, who went on vacation last week and then had to reschedule his flight for yesterday's show. He ended up landing like after midnight Eastern time. And today he's meeting with family to get his pets back because they took care of his pets on vacation. He will be back either tomorrow or Thursday. So I promise he's not gone. Someone asked me how he's doing on Twitter because it's been so long. He's okay. He'll be back. And then, the rest of this week, Knicks and Blazers games and just general topics about this team and them recovering for a win. How can they keep going and keep this momentum going in future games, especially if they beat the Knicks? We'll talk about what they've been doing better and how they can carry that forward. So big takeaways, just good to see the Pacers win. They played the way Carlisle wanted them to play, and a lot of these role players that were struggling really stepped up. Continue to talk about the good things for the Pacers later this week. We'll preview the Knicks tomorrow. Thank you guys a ton for listening, and we will see you then.